It's high time for grade 11 students, and here this is the biosphere lessons part 2 second lesson. And today's plan is to learn about the second theme, and this would be the last part of this, or the final video of this lesson. 15.1 organizational levels in the biosphere. We have completed that one, and today we plan to discover this part, the flow of energy and matter. And let's start from this place, the ecological pyramids. And the last video we discussed the food chains and food webs. A food chain is a way that the energy flow throughout the environment, or the energy received by the sun transfer from one level to another level through the food chain. Ecological pyramids based on that. An ecological pyramid is a graphical representation, the relationship between different organisms in an ecosystem. That is one fact, and each of the bars that makes up pyramids represents different trophic levels. That means starting from producers, thereafter first level consumers, second level consumer. Likewise the order increases, and their order, which is based on who eats whom. That's the most important thing, and represent the flow of energy. Now, not only the energy, the matter flow also represented by ecological pyramids. And energy moves up the pyramids starting with the primary producers or autotrophs. Producers are the autotrophs, such as plants, algae at very bottom, and followed by the primary consumers, which feed on these plants, and the secondary consumers, which feed on the primary consumers, and so on. Look at the number pyramids. First type of pyramids. There are three types we will discuss under that. The first type is the number pyramid type. Here we represent the producers. Here there are plants, small plants, maybe the large ones, as well as the algae found in this level, producers. Number of producers is the greatest, but the number of dependents on that, the primary consumer number, usually it's lesser, actually around 10% lesser than the number of producers. That means if certain amount of a certain number of grass plants growing in an area, each grass plant cannot be eaten by one rabbit. I mean, to feed up one rabbit, there should be a lot of grass plants dedicate their lives. A lot of grass plants should be eaten by one rabbit for its survival. According to this one, it says that if there are 10 here and around one rabbit to eat it, that means always only 10% past 10% of the number exists in the next level. And now we will move on to the secondary consumers, and in the secondary consumer level the number is even lesser. It also less. That means if there are 100 here, and there would be 10 here, and there is 1 here, always around 10% of the number decreases. The last level, tertiary consumers, and the tertiary consumer number is the fewest or the least one. Gradually the number decrease. Then when talking about the energy pyramids, we can understand why this number decreases, and also we can understand why that the food chains does not extend further to the next tertiary. After tertiary, why does not it go to the quaternary stages? And also we can understand that in the when talking about the energy pyramids, I will explain that one. And this is the story about the number pyramids. Number pyramids, so that it looks like a pyramid here, because the lower level, the producers, their number is big, and the consumer number gradually getting small. Then let's see the description for the number pyramids. A pyramid of numbers shows the relative number of organisms at each stage of a food chain, and there is a unit of measuring this number, and this is it. Value of the pyramid expressed as organisms per square meter. Insert in the square meter how many organisms live in, and normally the average organisms we expressed in this. Let's move on to the next type of pyramids. Before that, I will talk about the number pyramid types. And the first type, the one that we noticed, in that type, this is called the upright number pyramid. Always the producer number is greater, the consumer number lesser than that, and the less number of consumers further. If there are 1,000 here, 100 would be here, 10 would be here, around 1 would be here. That is the flow, or that is the build of this number pyramid. And let's move on to the next type. It can be inverted. Here is an inverted number pyramid. One oak tree, but number of insects living on that, their number is immensely higher. The second level you can see is bigger, and the next level there's a woodpecker. The number of woodpeckers eating these insects also, it's lesser than the insects but greater than the oak tree. On one oak tree, number of woodpeckers can live. Likewise, this type of number pyramid is an inverted one. This is an upright number pyramid. This is an inverted number pyramid. Go to the third type. Here it is. At the beginning, it is a normal upright number pyramid. Number of grasses bigger. The number of rabbits depend on that lesser. But again, the flea is growing on the rabbit. It's higher. At the last stage has inverted. Only the number pyramids can invert like this. Remember that fact as well, because the other two types, energy pyramids and biomass pyramids, will not be inverted in that manner. So let's move on to the next one now, the biomass pyramids. Here you can see the biomass is represented in each level. There is an oak tree. The biomass is bigger. Biomass means the mass of the oak tree and the dependence of that. Look at the value. It's a rough value. We can take it as 1,000 grams per square meters per year. Per 1 year, how many grams falling on certain area is the measurement of this biomass pyramid. And when go to the caterpillars, the biomass of number of caterpillars definitely greater than one here. Oak tree, there's only one oak tree, but the number of caterpillars greater than that. But there's another fact. When measuring the biomass of the caterpillars definitely lesser than the biomass of the oak tree. Therefore, in second level we can see lesser biomass. 100 grams per square meters per year. That means around 10% loss here. Again the same ratio comes. Go to the next level, the blue tit, a bird who eat this caterpillar, and their number is lesser than the previous. That means around 10 grams per square meters per year. In that case also we can see around 10% come into that, 90% loss in this. The final stage is the sparrow hawk, kind of hawk, that is the birds or the carnivorous one. Their number is less, around 1 hawk can depend on this, and these numbers are not exact. That can be the ratio just flows in this manner. That's the representation here. And biomass pyramids always stay as the upright ones. They never be inverted. And the pyramid of biomass shows the total mass of organisms at each stage of a food chain. The unities values are grams per square meter per year. This is the value. Likewise, let's move on to the next type of pyramids, energy pyramids. The people mostly talk about these energy pyramids because those pyramids show how energy flow through the food chains. You can see some producers on that ground. These producers can capture energy from the sunlight, and imagine they capture 10,000 kilocalories or 10,000 kilojoules or such amount here, the producers. And the dependent levels, next dependent level, when they are taking it here, there is a heat loss. That means when these producers doing that respiration, lot of heat loss out and they use some energy here. Therefore around 10% of energy pass to the next level. The rabbits, they have gained only around 1000 kilocalories. 90% waste out as heat lost and in another way. And when go to the next level, another heat loss take place from the rabbit's bodies. Therefore around less amount pass to the next. Then secondary consumer, the snake, receives only 100 kilocalories. Likewise, when go to the next stage, another heat loss take place, so there is energy loss. Likewise, when coming to the tertiary consumer level, there's big loss of energy. So this also seems like a pyramid, therefore we call this as energy pyramid. Now let's see, the pyramid of energy shows the amount of energy trapped per area in a given period at each stage of food chain. The values are kilojoules, represent as kilojoules per square meters per year, or kilocalories we can express. Standard way is this, kilojoules per square meters per year. And that's what you must remember about this energy pyramids. Now I will show how this energy dissipates through that. This is called energy dissipation. When an organism, any organism, it may be a plant, animal, or a microorganism, when it takes the food, that means it takes energy, basically chemical energy through the food. Look at the 100% energy taken by this rabbit. But this rabbit, as it's doing or the performing lot of metabolic processes, especially respiration, it uses up some amount of energy for its activities, metabolic activities. The amount roughly calculated as 60%, and around 60% of energy is used up for the respiration. Now 100 came, 60 used up, another 40 remain. Out of that 40 also around 30 emits as waste matters. 30% sometimes without absorbing, or sometimes when doing the metabolic process, some amount of energy as waste matters waste out. Now 30 plus 60, 90% has already been used or waste out. Only 10% remain. That 10% is the value stored in its body. 10% stores as the biomass. And now you can understand the reason why that 10% of energy or 10% of biomass exists in that food levels or the pyramids, energy pyramids. 90% waste out. That's why always less amount traveling here. And with the food chains we can explain this further. If this rabbit is eaten by another organism, maybe tiger or someone, and 10% or the 10 travel into it, and in that one also around 6 would be used. Out of 6, 60% means 6 would be used for the respiration, 3 would waste out, and only 1 unit will store in the body. So it's very clear why this energy dissipation take place, and because of the energy dissipation there is no much strength to go to the deeper levels. I mean, in food chain we can see tertiary levels, maximum quaternary means the fourth level, and but we can't see the more levels because they don't have energy to sustain, or they don't have enough energy to gain from the previous energy levels or the previous tropic levels. That's the story about the energy dissipation. And next thing is the cycling of materials. Flow of energy we discussed. This time the cycles. Energy never be cycled because energy flows only one way. I mean, once the energy come from the sun, it will never travel to the sun back. But here the material cycle. First we will talk about this carbon cycle. Carbon exists in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. This cycle is easy to understand because a lot of processes related to the carbon cycle are very familiar ones to us. And carbon dioxide in atmosphere, first of all, used up by the plants. It's called fixation process. The fixation process, the basic fixation process is the photosynthesis. By photosynthesis, plants use this carbon dioxide. Now the carbon enters the plant body. Then carbon will travel to the animal body through this process, the consumption process. Animals eat plants, then that carbon travels to the animals, primary consumers. Primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumers, then it will travel to the higher level consumers also. Now the plants got carbon and primary consumers got carbon, also the higher level consumers got carbon. And there is way to release out this carbon back to the carbon dioxide. That is another familiar process. That process is the respiration. Plants do respiration, therefore the carbon again get added to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide gas through the respiration process. And consumers means the animals also do the same through their respiration, also carbon dioxide added. You can see it's a simple cycle: fixation, photosynthesis, and by the respiration they will be added back. What happens to the stored carbon? I mean the materialist carbons in that. That carbon types can be get added to the soil by the decomposition processes. It mainly happens due to the death and decomposition. Once a plant dies through decomposition, carbon can come to the soil. Also, once the animals die, it will be added through the decomposition, and higher level consumers also may die. With the death, they comes here. So through the decomposition, some amount of carbon now has come to the soil, and there are detritivores, the decomposers actually, basically fungi and the bacteria types. They can break down these organic materials, organic carbon in the organic materials in inorganic form or another further organic forms. One way, you know that around a million years ago, a lot of animals died due to mass extinction processes or due to some natural processes. And those dead animals now have become fossils. It's called fossilization. And due to the decomposition, as a result of that fossilization take place. Now after million years later, the human beings using these fossils to generate or to fulfill their energy needs. We gain out fossils as fossil fuels, maybe the coal or maybe crude oil or natural gases. Then we use fossils in factories or for transportation, household cooking, and we extract the fuel and using up this fuel. When using up the fuel, the combustion take place. Through combustion, again carbon dioxide will be added to the atmosphere. Look at that cycle. The carbon in the atmosphere taken through the photosynthesis, and by death and decomposition they get added to the soil through soil fossilization. Fossils form, we burnt and extracted the fossils and burnt them. Through the combustion they get added to the as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And there's simple cycle also going on in carbon dioxide, the carbon cycle, this process. Look at the dissolution. Carbon dioxide dissolves in water. That dissolved carbon dioxide used up by algae for photosynthesis. The dead algae can be sedimented as the lime deposits. Calcium carbonate contain carbon. Likewise, the lime deposition has taken place. That lime deposition, so the carbonates can be again dissolved in water. Dissolution take place, and there will be simple cycle going in water or the aquatic environments like this. So this is a story about the carbon cycle. As I said, it's simple because the most of the processes are familiar. What fixation, photosynthesis process is familiar. Respiration, we know what the respiration is, and decomposition, fossilization, and also the combustion. These processes are familiar ones. And the nitrogen cycle will be little bit strange to us because the processes of nitrogen cycle are somewhat complicated. Nitrogen exists as the pure gas in the atmosphere, but the problem is the nitrogen directly we can't, or the plants or animals, they can't absorb nitrogen directly from the atmosphere. But nitrogen is a vital element to us, especially in proteins. We use nitrogen, and the nitrogen exists in protein, but animals or plants directly can't take. Then what is the option? It should come in a long and round path. Let's find out how nitrogen flows through these processes. As in the carbon cycle, this also starts from the fixation process, nitrogen fixation. And basic nitrogen fixation process is the biological fixation. There are bacteria living in soil and in root nodules of leguminous plants, and that bacteria types, they can fix the nitrogen. And rhizobium bacteria is a nitrogen fixing bacteria. It can fix nitrogen. Actually, fixation means converting nitrogen to form of utilization. As an example, nitrogen converted into a substance like nitrate. The nitrates can be absorbed by the root system of the plants. And one process is the bacteria living symbiotically with the plants. The other process is bacteria living in the soil. Those bacteria types also fix the nitrogen and convert nitrogen to nitrate types. And then what happens? Industrial fixation. This is with the intervention of human beings. Fertilizer production. The main one, urea, is one of famous fertilizer that contain nitrogen. CONH2 twice. Look at this, nitrogen is here in the urea. And the third fixation process naturally take place, that is the atmospheric fixation. When lightning take place, enormous energy produced here. That energy joins or the mix up nitrogen with oxygen and form nitrates again. And that process is the nitrogen, or that process can be analyzed as the atmospheric fixation of nitrogen. So after this fixation, all these nitrates just get added to the soil like this, mixing with soil. Now there are nitrates in soil, came from three ways: biological fixation, industrial fixation, and atmospheric fixation. These nitrates can be absorbed by the plants, and once it comes to the plants and into the plant proteins, then it enters to the consumers or the animals. From these legume plants also, once the legume plants are consumed by the consumers, they come to the consumers. Then how does it get back or get added to the soil again? Once these plants or consumers release it, basically consumers, especially the animals, through their waste matters. When they remove waste matters, they just get added to the soil as ammonia or the ammonium ions. And this is one way, especially animals remove urea. Through urea it comes as the ammonium ions to the soil. The other one is once they die and decompose. Death and decomposition will cause to or the retrievers or the decomposers will act on that, then convert it to the ammonia through the process called ammonification. And this is the next important thing we learned about nitrogen fixation. Next one is ammonification, and bacteria and fungi can do that. This ammonia again convert to nitrates by nitrifying bacteria, and that process is called nitrification. And ammonia converts to nitrates by nitrifying bacteria, nitrification. These nitrates can be again absorbed. There is another simple cycle go on here. How does this nitrogen can be added to the atmosphere again? There are some bacteria types called denitrifying bacteria. These bacteria types can convert or extract nitrogen and release nitrogen as a gas to the atmosphere like this. Look at this. This process is called denitrification, and through denitrification the nitrates converts into nitrogen here. So cycle completes now. And in this cycle, nitrogen cycle, there are new terms, some strange terms. You must remember them. Number one, nitrogen fixation. It's of three forms. And the next one is the death and decomposition. Those are common. Absorption, consumption, common things. And the next vital thing is the ammonification, nitrification, and denitrification. Right, this is the end of the lesson, and that is the ecology of the 15th unit. Uh, and you can find the note as in the previous one. Read the note from the blog site www.itscitimblogspot.com. And also this is the end of our syllabus. Actually, if you just gain something from the from this video, just press this like button, and also subscribe the channel. I think you have already subscribed this. If not, subscribe it and get new lessons or the notifications as well. And we can meet back from another type of lesson here. Till that, goodbye.